everyone. My name is Grant Harriman, and I'll be presenting to you all. If I can get the presentation up. There we are. Hello, my name is Grant Harriman. I was assigned the Section 6A, so I'll be talking about you with the free market and what are the secrets that hide behind it. Awesome. So, first, we're going to start off with the pros of the free market. We're then going to transfer to the cons of the free market, which are often overlooked in our lectures because the free market itself is a very beneficial thing for society, but it came with a lot of consequences for the working class and middle class individuals as well as lower class individuals. So we're going to be talking about working conditions, gov and economic policies, corruption and competition, the concept and ideology of social Darwinism, and then we're going to get into an activity. So, first off, talking about the pros of the free market. The free market is notorious for its positive societal changes and functions, such as freedom choices, access to foreign goods, jobs created, competition, profit motive, variety of products, creation of supply and demand, all these things that we've gone over in class that are very essential to a working society such as what we have in the West or in the United States. And while all these contribute to the general public's overall quality of life, we're going to discover how the free market exploited the balance of work-life relations and staggered society into different boxes and areas so that they were stuck actually kind of where they were and couldn't progress. So first off, we're going to talk about working conditions. So factory working conditions, especially during the industrial boom with the boom of free market economics, it was very tough, and there were many long hour shifts. 10 to 12 hours a day would actually be some of the shorter times. It could go up to 16 hours a day working machinery. The environment was often unsafe. There's a lot of deadly accidents, a lot of a very high mortality rate and a very high injury rate. And it often led to repetitive and monotonous work for the workers, and that was so your job's not fascinating. You have a high mortality rate. You're doing something you don't enjoy just to put food on the table, and while it could be worse, even though it is already quite bad, imagine you have a family. And now child labor is a thing. So your whole family is quite literally the working class of America. So child labor was very common. During this time, children often endured harsh working conditions and unsanitary, cramped factories where there were no safety regulations and very long hours. They were paid way less than adults and were less likely to join labor unions, which we'll get into later. So they specifically targeted children because they were very impressionable. If they could, again, because the work was monotonous and repetitive, if they could learn how to do one task over and over, they were good to work, and they didn't have the autonomy to join labor unions or advocate for themselves. So that was a really big deal during this kind of turning point of the free market with the Industrial Revolution. Moving on to government policies, we have some familiar terms here. Moving into government policies, kind of like how the government was involved in the free market. So we run off of a system called laissez-faire capitalism, and laissez-faire capitalism quite literally means hands-off. It means hands-off capitalism. So it had very significant implications for societal consequences and society as a whole, and it results in minimal regulations surrounding workers' rights and consumer protections. So this is a good and a bad thing in what our activity will be about later. So I won't spoil it, but basically laissez-faire states that the government isn't in charge of manufacturing. People are the ones creating capital, which is good to have that freedom and choice, like we discussed on the first slide. Every citizen has a right to create their own capital and profit. But again, regarding the workers' regulations on the other slide and what good it actually had for the workers and protecting the people who worked for those companies had a huge role in and what was happening at the time. And then intervention. So intervention, also known as government intervention, was finding a balance between the principles of the free market and capitalism and the necessity for government intervention to safeguard citizens' rights and ensure fairness. So this was actually the protection of workers' rights. And this is, why a lot of labor unions were a thing. They would work for corporations or businesses that didn't have these rights, and so they would get together in unions. Just right here, unions that negotiate for higher wages and workplace safety. Basically, to put it overall. So a bit about what we just talked about. Laissez-faire economy, while offering certain advantages, also has significant drawbacks, such as income inequality and the rise of monopolies that can exploit workers and consumers. It often fails to represent the interests of all societal groups, leaving education and healthcare inadequately provided. So laissez-faire principles were pretty dominant in Western economics during the late 19th century. Um, but some government intervention is necessary for a sustainable economy, and we're going to kind of discuss that because if you have a lot of workers dying, you don't have a high retention rate. You're going to go through a lot of people, and ultimately, not as much work will be done. So it's important to have intervention to protect workers' rights, to protect workers' freedoms, to intervene with certain manipulations that certain people may do while running their corporation, which we're going to get into right now. Corruption and competition. So, if you thought, the labor protections, the unsanitary working conditions, children working, people dying, people becoming exhausted, mentally fatigued, mentally ill, if you thought all that was very bad, now we have corruption, and this is known as crony capitalism or cronyism. And on Google it's marked as a derogatory term, but as long as you don't call someone a crony, I think you'll be fine. So crony capitalism is businesses securing permits, government grants, tax incentives, and other improper advantages through their influence over the state's allocations of public resources. So their actual connection with the state or the body that is the government, the ruling government. It's kind of like I don't know if you've ever seen Spy versus Spy. It was a little like comic strip. You had an all black spy and an all white spy, and they were like brothers, and they would like shake hands. That's basically what this is. It is kind of the behind the scenes of, if you do this for me, I will provide this for you, and it's kind of the corruption and the manipulation of certain companies getting breaks or getting advantages through unregulated agreements. And so economic manipulation to serve groups in power was a huge thing, and there was no real growth or help by doing this. It was purely to benefit the corporation and purely to benefit the government, with no interest in the common people. Competition, however, is a very healthy thing. So again, laissez-faire, hands-off government was a big thing. There was a lack of regulation and intervention, which was a bad, it's a big deal. It's a bad thing, but society benefited from competition. It generally did. I mean, people were able to consume and produce goods at a higher rate than usual, and even though people were dying in the factories, every time we take two steps forward, one step back, it's still a drawback, but it's still progression as a society. That's why it's seen as a good thing. External unions such as the mafia were sometimes involved. So that's with competition. That's actually kind of an interesting overlap, because that's how competition leads to cronyism and crony capitalism. So competition would get so fierce that sometimes external unions, labor unions, would be violent, gangs would be violent, and the corporations would create these bonds with such external unions, and they would either go out to seek to kill someone that was the head of the company, or they would go out to kind of take over or do illicit trades and kind of like the behind the scenes. So that's kind of crony capitalism on a smaller scale, stimulated by competition, which is very interesting and still is very relevant today. And society benefited mostly because of this, because of greater product output and greater production standards for competition. So these two are very linked with each other, and they go very hand in hand. And competition is a very good and healthy thing in moderation, and corruption is kind of over competition or just corporate greed. So yeah, and getting into kind of the corruption and intervention versus full laissez-faire, we're going to talk about social Darwinism, which played a huge impact in deciding whether people should intervene, give workers rights, or not at all, because it was deemed unfair. And so what is social Darwinism? Britannica said it the best. Social Darwinist held that life of humans in the society was a struggle for existence, ruled by survival of the fittest. Kind of expanding on that, Um, Whoever is the richest, they are the fittest, and so everything should benefit them. If that makes sense, that's kind of what is very relevant today. Whoever is at the top of the top, they're deemed the fittest, and they are deemed the most worthy or the most deserving. And so people should work purely for them and the benefit of them because they are the fittest, um, and their hard work got them there. This is controversial because anything that interfered with self improvement of superior individuals, or market or the superior market was to be resisted. And this is what came to be social Darwinism. So it's very weird that the actual superiority of the individuals of the market were kind of resisted in a sense. That was very odd. And overall, any intervention was just deemed bad or just purely immoral. That's the word I'm looking for. So a consequence, because social Darwinism was a widely accepted ideology, any interference with the government or free market, or any interference with the free market, aka government intervention, was deemed unjust, and that meant less equal pay and less labor rights for workers. So getting into this, here's our activity. A debate between East and West, okay? West, you are in an argument for why social Darwinism is moral and why government intervention is immoral. East, you argue why the government needs to intervene and why social Darwinism is flawed. So we're going to do 20 minutes to research, 20 minutes to craft a quick presentation, and 15 minutes to debate. That's 5 minutes per team and then 5 minutes for a debrief. You're going to choose 3 representatives to talk and debate for the entirety East and West. So that's 6 people total, 3 for East, 3 for West. And it's not a final grade, just an in-class activity. Awesome. Here are some questions you should ask your teams, ask yourselves. They will be listed on the document on the following slide. Timer starts. Time to debate. Flip a coin, heads or tails. And here's the link to your reflection. So yeah, overall, that is my presentation. I will link the activities on a separate slide, and I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much.